It's 2014, and we're introduced to the newest entry of fantasy dating simulator Meme Edition. It brought us new areas to explore, new stories, new flashy abilities, new butts to touch, and time magic. And I thought to myself, hold up a minute, this isn't Game of the Year contender Club Pony Pals. So I turned off Dragon Age, booted up what I actually set out to accomplish, and that appeared to be that. Now, half a decade later, I achieved my goal of being the world's finest digital pony equestrian and can talk about the second most important thing I listed: time magic. You quest along, think nothing worse than this can happen, and suddenly there is this gorgeous beast right there telling you that some bloke from half a continent away is shredding the fabric of time and making hash browns for brekkie with it. But it's not as big of a deal as you think. BioWare have implemented limitations. Some people in the back rows might argue. Yes, indeed they have. Some that are easily broken. Let me explain. Time magic was, up until the breach appeared, only theoretical. Add a small sprinkle of ripping a hole the size of every living dwarf combined into the invisible force that holds back demons from entering your neighbor's dog, and you have functional but limited time travel. Limited in the sense that you can only travel within the timeline of the breach existing. So in theory, if you wanted to travel back in time and pull a Booker DeWitt on Solus, I can't, because that was long before the breach came into existence. While that might seem rather definite, BioWare controlled the narrative, and could decide that with the veil coming down in Dragon Age 4, time magic is now possible without limitations. Which opens us up to all sorts of black magic buggery, the worst of which would be lazy storytelling, but also illogical storytelling. Theoretical example. The veil comes down, the world is in chaos, and a certain man who bears resemblance with something that a hen sits on decides, right, time travel is a thing now, I'll just travel back in time, kill the Avenurus, and prevent me from ever having to make the veil. And he does just that. He travels back in time, kills the Avenurus in their sleep or something, and saves his people. But does he? See, if he just travels back in time and kills them, he's creating a paradox. By killing the Avenurus in the past, he creates a future in which he has no reason to travel back in time. This is called a grandfather or consistency paradox, and occurs whenever changing the past is possible. Killing the Avenurus in the past is not like you're suddenly pulling a dark in the storytelling department and being praised. So instead, leave it limited at what you already wrote. The breach allowed for it to happen, giving a limited timeline to manipulate and no paradox. Don't change the rules to allow any significant damage to the veil to allow time magic. If you really, absolutely want to bring it back, keep it like an Inquisition and allow a small part of the future to be seen, then go back to the original timeline. It's a powerful and fun tool to play with, but it's not a good one to implement halfway through. This technically is the end of the main video, but I did record some more. I invited my friend Saria to have a chat about time magic in Dragon Age and hear what she says about it. Enjoy! What is your opinion on time magic in Dragon Age?
I think it can be useful compared to a lot of magic. I think it was only worthy for a certain quest and how at least Alexius did it, because he spent his whole life doing it with his family to try to see if that ritual would work, and it did, or like the magic in general. But I don't know if any other magister would do the same, because it doesn't seem as powerful as you need with like the Fade. You need like a attachment to something, and there's not many of that, I guess. And it's not really something we've heard in the game, so I just don't know how that can be recycled again. And in the purpose of the game, it just helped the quest, and I thought it was cool.
Do you think they should bring it back in the next game?
No, it would just fuck up like the whole timeline of everything, and paradoxes, and playing other games that had time magic and shit. It was horrible. I just don't think they would do it well.
Time magic, like to pull it off properly, you need to set it up from the start. Kinda like they did in Dark, for example, the series on Netflix, or even in Bioshock Infinite, where it was, pretty much planned from the start.
Even in like Bioshock, it was implemented as like you could get it, but you're not like fucking up the paradox, which when I played Final Fantasy 13-2, it's all about, well, you screwed up this timeline, so this timeline is this timeline, and you gotta visit this timeline to fix the timeline. I'm like, really? Please, stop. So yeah, I don't like anything revolving time in general. That's just my opinion though.
Last question, what would be the most fun thing you could do with it, regardless of creating a paradox or not?
Pranks. Going back in time and be like, oh, if we made a prank for this, and like screw up the whole thing. Future? I wouldn't even know. But the past, anything with the past.
I think I would probably like just go back in time, grab, I don't know, like Elgarnan or one of the Avenurus, go back to the present and just bring them to Solus. Like there's just all of a sudden there's just Elgarnan or Mythal standing in front of him.
Yeah, if I had grabbed somebody in the past, I'd grab like the first broodmother.
Go on a quest to find the first broodmother.
Yes, and then be like, Solus, the veil will drop if you kiss this broodmother. Do it. I bet he would.
Anything else you wanna say about time magic?
From Inquisition, if you kind of read World of Thetis Volume 2, it explains the experiments of Alexius and how their family, all of the family, even the servants were like involved with the ritual. So it kind of shows like already a culture in Tevinter, and I kind of wish that was like already talked about in the game. It wasn't at all. It was just like, oh, Alexius, the bad man, when in like reality, it's not like that at all. He's like scientist essentially that wants to control time. And now, of course, that he's obsessed with power with Corypheus, of course, he's like a boogeyman. But I feel like in defense of Alexius, he had I think he just got crazy after his wife died. Oh yeah, and his son was tainted.
I think that's the whole reason Alexius even joined him. Because in the game as well, he says that, you know, he can save you and everything.
Yep.
I don't think Alexius would have joined Corypheus that freely if Felix hasn't caught the blight.
I agree. It also kind of confuses the Herald at first because you're like, how can I trust Dorian when he used to work with Alexius? And then also his own son, Alexius. If they explained like he was a good man, he turned to like, which they kind of did, but if they want to introduce time magic, they could have done it more detailed and plot worthy, but it was just kind of like a side mission. Again, it's ultimately up to the Herald to kind of choose that anyways.
The way they implemented it kind of feels like just a side mission. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, you traveled into the future, have fun.
Yeah, it sounded so powerful. It was like, oh. And if you play all the other games, you're like, I've never heard of this. This exists? Shit. And then once we realized, like, Solus is like, restore the elves of my time. And we're like, is that time magic? Because that's the only thing we were introduced to.
They could have done it a bit more elaborate, I feel, but it served its purpose.
It did. So I guess it's a win-win.
Just as long as they don't bring it back.
Yes, please don't. I mean, I guess the only way they would do it is if Solus goes back in time. But what would he do differently?
Thank you for coming on regardless of such deep conversation, and I shall see you all in the next video.
Bye.